also workplace parking levy. I've got some points I want to make, and I know Brian does as well. Before we do that, can we have Edward Lee, if you're here? I think you're on Teams as well? No, are you?
I am, yes. Yes, thank you, Chair.
Fantastic. In which case, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. So really just amplifying Martin Lucas-Smith's point, that if the board is unable to support the Making Connections plan, which includes the only funding mechanism on the table to pay for an expansion in bus services, will it instruct its officers to develop a business case for introducing a workplace parking levy? This would provide a reliable income stream to start funding long-term improvements to bus services and reductions in fares. It would also create an incentive to employers to assist their staff in finding new ways to travel to and for work, including cycling, taking public transport, and car sharing. All of these outcomes are widely supported and essential to decarbonising transport, reducing road congestion, and improving public health. There is in Nottingham a successful model for implementing a workplace parking levy. It can be tailored relatively easily to avoid unintended consequences. For instance, schools, hospitals, and care homes could be exempted at the outset, and it costs very little to run, as there are no cameras or complex billing system. Whatever the board's collective view is, could the business and university reps please state for the record their respective positions on the principle of a workplace parking levy? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Edward, indeed. And with that on the table, I think there's a few comments from the board. Would you like to start, Brian?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm interested in this returning theme of workplace parking levy, because we've examined this many times over the last 9 years from the inception of the city deal, and each time we've looked at it, we've come to the conclusion that the income generated, certainly on its own, as we've just heard, wouldn't support the revenue we needed. And Nottingham is often cited as an exemplar of workplace parking levy success. But if I'm correct, that raises something like £9 million a year, which does not cover the cost of the bus and tram services that are operating in Nottingham. In fact, it's financially supported, if I'm right, with a £650 million PFI finance scheme, and it doesn't cover its costs. So there's implications to workplace parking levy that I feel aren't properly addressed. The 23 million that you mentioned includes, I think, an increase in car parking fees in the city. So generally, and we have considered it and reconsidered it and reconsidered it, and it has failed on every consideration to meet our goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. With Edward's question also on the table, was there anything that Andy wanted to say about the university, or would you like to do that later?
Not at this point.
Okay, no, that's fine. We will keep that point hanging. There are only a couple of things that I would say, Martin, I love you very much, but, we have surprisingly high levels of support for a workplace parking levy, including from Mr. Brown. I mean, Mr. Brown doesn't usually say the same thing from one minute to the next. And, if indeed this were to be taken forward at some point in the future, I mean, I wouldn't want to be on the record in that sense.
I think you just are.
At the same time, there's a point in Edward Lee's question which is quite interesting, because it says it would also create an incentive to employers to assist their staff in finding new ways to travel and to and from work, including cycling, walking, and so on. Now, you do recognise that there's quite a lot of things that would fit in that it. And as a result, whilst it is not the business for today's agenda to discuss workplace parking levies, and it's not for anyone at this point unless they want to.
Why are you talking about it then?
I would always caution against the next best thing, because if you've got something that you really want to champion, you need people to do that.
You do,
So that's all I
and
can
you
say.
haven't.
We've got more questions which we probably do need to go through, and in fact before we do that, Sarah, who
If you buy your leave, okay, we'll take a few more questions. Jolly good
the
idea.
needs of the users of our roads are not considered to be equal, and that's a point.
Doesn't sound like she's particularly interested in the questions.
Right, who's next on my list? I think it's
Goodness knows.
Sarah again, this time channeling Elizabeth via Teams, is that correct?
Oh, Sarah and the kids. Okay, bye for now.